So thank you very much. We do still have time for questions, folks. So please, stay in the room. We are going to break for coffee in just a little bit, but we're just getting set up on the stage right now. So as we get ready for the questions, just a few words. We have people online, many people online, and they will be sending questions into the ILSI staff, who will be able to ask those questions on their behalf. And of course, we also have people in the room here. And if anybody in the room wants to ask a question, please, you'll find the microphone, because we need to use the microphone to record the question. So while everybody's just thinking and getting themselves organized, maybe I could start with a question. I think that, let's first of all think about where we all have where we have a lot of commonality in everything we've heard today. And I think quite clearly we're hearing that everybody recognizes the need for change and the need for progress. And, food companies would love more harmonized regulations. We have challenges in communication. We have real food safety challenges. And there maybe are thousands, but should we be directed by the consumers that shout the loudest, or the latest, trending thing on social media, or a political or a state, or so many challenges. And so my simple question that one of you may choose to answer is, where do we start? And how do we prioritize the most important things to start with and help the FDA, who clearly are committed to changing the way they do things? How do we give them direction? So where do we start? And what are the difficulties? Would someone like to take that?
So I can keep that up. So where do I think we start? I think we look at what the loudest voices are saying, and then we pair it with evidence. I think at a certain point we need to have a reality check. There does need to be accountability. We do need to have evidence before we make a decision. I mean, policy without evidence ends up being a disaster. So we need to take those concerns into consideration and very seriously talk with the people who are worried. Figure out where it's coming from, because like you said numerous times, people want to protect their family. They care deeply about it, and they want their government to work for them. And they don't feel like their voice is being heard right now. What can we do to rectify that? Because I don't think putting it in the hands of states makes a whole heck of a lot of sense, because I have yet to see a state budget that has the money for the experts that are needed to make sure that the policy being crafted is actually makes sense for a population, like not just for like a little, yeah, it makes sense in your neighborhood. It doesn't make sense for.
Can speakers have the microphone a little closer? We can't quite hear you back.
Okay.
Just moving it forward.
Would anyone else like to comment on that?
So I just would like to. So of course, I think we need a balance. As a risk assessor, in addition to the substances that we hear a lot about, we absolutely, to Elizabeth's point, should not ignore those. We should take a look, determine what is the information, what is the evidence, what are the data gaps, and work to fill those data gaps and communicate what we know about those. But we also need to consider a risk-based prioritization approach that includes other things beyond those that we just hear a lot about, because they have an acronym that's easy to repeat and memorable. There are some things that we want to make sure, with our very limited resources, we're prioritizing the work we do based on the things that are going to have the largest public health impact. And so we need to pay attention to those that rise above the fray and capture the attention of consumers and media and other interested parties, but not only let those drive, because there is going to be new information that's going to be developed in the various sectors that warrants attention and review. And it may have a much more complicated name, may be much less well known, may be published in a very reputable but not as popular journal. So we don't want to miss those things. And so we need to develop an approach that incorporates both of those, both the popular and the less well known. So we're updating and doing reviews that are going to be driven by public health impacts and safety.
So let's go to the room then.
Yeah, fascinating session and really important topics. I want to be very specific on this one. So, Dr. Jacobs, this discussion about cell-firm grass, so having gone through that process in them 20 years ago and very successfully. And in all modesty, I don't think the FDA could have done any better in our review. Can you give some, and as you know, I mean, flavors are a special topic. So there's a lot of work. There's the flavor industry has an expert group set up that they do a lot of self-affirmation of grass. What I know nothing that anybody can say today in the government may change tomorrow, but can you give some outline of how you think this topic can be addressed? How that's being looked at, and what kind of the options are for addressing all those food additives which have gone through the JEGFA FDA typical type of approach. How do you think that could be most successfully carried forward?
Do we have the day for the question? So I think there is one thing I want to make sure we take an opportunity to clarify in terms of GRAS versus the food additive petition process, FDA notified GRAS versus self-GRAS. And where I want to start with, and what I tried to capture within my presentation, is the scientific review, the data requirements, and the robustness of the information that we're looking at when FDA does a review is the same whether something comes in through the GRAS notification process to the FDA for our evaluation, or whether it comes in and is submitted as a food additive petition or a color additive petition. These are the same scientists in the same division that are reviewing food additive petitions, GRAS notices, and color additive petitions. They say over and over, it's the same quality and quantity of data. For something to be considered by FDA through its GRAS notification program to inform that review, all of that data that's seminal to the review must be in the public domain in the form of peer-reviewed literature. When a submission comes in, if there is a bunch of confidential information in there, the FDA will say, this is not GRAS. To be GRAS, you have to be generally available. That information has to be in the public. So the idea that a food additive petition is getting a different, or a color additive petition, is getting a different scientific review and held to a different scientific standard than something that comes into the agency for a GRAS review should be corrected, because they are the same. They are the same. Now, we have said, and will continue to say, despite the fact that the resource challenge it would cause, and it will, because the program is at capacity and has been for a number of years, just based on the number of GRAS notices we receive, along with the other types of submissions that we receive into our MARC noted very small program that covers all of these. We are at capacity. We are growing. We are receiving we are filing, I should say. There are notices that come in that are not fileable. We are filing around 70 on average notices, GRAS notices per year, about an equal number of food contact notification a year, a very small number of color additive petitions, a very small number of food additive petitions. We're at capacity there. Despite that, we encourage industry over and over again to come and bring their GRAS notice conclusions to the agency to go through our process. And we will continue to do that. The idea that industry can make a self-determination of GRAS is certainly creating challenges. I wouldn't say they're necessarily safety challenges. I do not know. I would like to, based on engagements I've had with industry knows how to do a safety evaluation. We see it time and time again. They know what is required to be the data that's necessary to demonstrate safety, but we don't know what's happening if they don't bring it to us. So we encourage them to bring it to us.
Is there any way you guys can say like that on the website? Like, we have 10 people and we have 5,000 requests. It takes them this much to do it accurately. And then just be like, okay, Congress, figure that out. Because it sounds like it's a resource problem. You can't do anything unless Congress passes legislation to give you money. So I feel like we're at a point where everyone's like, I'm going to go to the state. We're like, well, no, don't go to the state. Go to your congressperson and say, like, the national one, what can we do to better fund them? I don't know. You want to do that? Probably not. Can I do that?
It's a great suggestion. I think we have another question from the floor. Thanks very much.
Thank you for a really informative session. With our algorithmically controlled devices that give us each our own bubble, how does a consumer get to a reliable source of information without actually typing in the URL?
So that is really hard, and it is wonderful here that help get through those information bubbles. And there are a lot of really interesting content creators who are, they call it trend jacking, where they see like a trend that's happening on social media that might be full of misinformation, and they do the trend with factual information. And what happens then is people might see both of those and they're like, huh, what do I do with that? And even if they're not wholly convinced, they might be less likely to share some of that not great information. Or what they'll do is they'll search, whether they'll search in the app or they'll go to Google. It's either here or there. And when they search, that's where I come in to try and make sure there's some factual information available to them. Things are changing a little bit with AI and the integration of AI and how younger people are using the app. But otherwise, you really, it's a little, I don't want to say bleak, it's a little bleak. It's a little bleak, I'll be honest with you. It's tough.
So everything she said, there is also, you can pay, there's, through Meta, for example, to boost content to specific demographics, even if they're not following you. So you could set, so we do use those tools sometimes. Another thing is that I realize as much as I don't want to create an echo chamber, sometimes we are in echo chambers. So sometimes I'll package up information and with the goal of having my followers take it to their communities, right? So then take it around the holiday table when you hear someone say something, you're armed and ready to to have that conversation. And I find that people really like our content when we package it up. Like, okay, so when you hear someone say this, here's how you can respond. They like that very much because now we're training people to help deploy the message to break out of the echo chamber and into their own communities. It's not a perfect science, but I think framing it that way can be helpful.
We also create content that can be, for lack of a better word, just plagiarized. Like, come to the website, please. I answer a bunch of questions. Take it. It's prime. Just take it and go with it. I mean, having those types of resources, and the more people who can put that out there, the better. We need factual content that's simple FAQ.
Thank you. Do we have, no, I'm being told we're out of time, otherwise you folks won't be able to have a coffee break. So, but I know that there probably will be questions that are being gathered online, and we will do our best to collate those and at least find some way to get those addressed. But I want to thank all the speakers this morning for providing this wonderful